Okay, folks, really important. This is not an advert. I'm actually talking about the podcast. This is really, really important information that I need to tell you. So, folks, normally I read most of a book by the time I do a podcast. You know, take this Mercury Detox one, or Project Nimrod, which I read all of it, or Naima Hermiston's Planning Parenthood in the Age of Autism. You know, these are podcasts that are going to be coming out soon. I've read pretty much all the book. Most, I would say I get to about 70% at least. Now, when I did the live stream last week with Elana Freeland, I'd only done about 20% of this book. I won't lie. And you'll understand why when you listen to this clip, which I'm going to play now. You're very organized. You got a beautiful presentation. But listen, it's so nice to have you on. I'm not going to lie. I've not finished reading your book. And and there's a reason for it. Let me explain. I mean, if you look at my studio, it's littered with books. And I'll be honest with you, I get through about 60 to 70% of the book by the time I speak to my guest. And I've got a gist of the book by then. And, you know, I skim through the end because I'm just so busy.
Oh,
but
yeah.
your book caught me off guard because normally I'm quite smart and switched on. But you're using so much fancy terminology that I have to keep stopping every fracking page, not even just like the page, like every paragraph to Google or look up what the frack something means. And that, you know, and I'm not talking about just ionosphere. I mean, I'm talking about like even more complicated stuff like that. And and then I have to look up some of your references because then I think, she's just making this shit up. Like, just, what the hell is this shit? Does she even know what she's talking about? Is this legit? Like, I don't even know if this is legit or not. So I'm looking up people, I'm looking up names, I'm looking at terminology, and then I get sidetracked. Then I'm looking at the ionosphere and then the magnetosphere, and then it's just getting freaking complicated. And before I know it, I've only read 4 pages, and it's like, and an hour's gone by, and I'm like, oh shit, and it's like that's why it's quite a difficult book to go through. I mean, I'll give you an example, like Alphen waves. I'm like, what the hell? And then, you know, there's another one that guy, what was it called? The Birkeland currents. And then I'm reading about Birkeland and then how he was like this Scandi guy and he's up there, you know, theorizing what the Aurora Borealis is, and then he was proven correct. And then even this guy 100 years before that, Celsius, was predicting something similar and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I just start going down these tangents. Then you're reading about the Gulf streams and everything. So I apologize for not having I think I'm probably, I don't know, a fifth of the way through the book, which is not very much, I admit. But it's okay. Yeah. Maybe I think what this means is you're going to come back for part 2, part 3, because there's a shit ton to go through. But in a nutshell, right, you're going to talk about the hidden technologies of HAARP, chemtrails, 5G, 6G.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how long you're planning on going on for. I was thinking maybe like 90 minutes to 2 hours, but I don't know if you can get to the point where you're covering nanotech and synthetic biology and transhumanism. So as you can see from that original clip from the first live stream, I was really struggling with this book. I mean, it's fascinating, you know, the Geoengineered Transhuman, the hidden technologies of HAARP, chemtrails, 5G, 6G, nanotechnology, synthetic biology, and the scientific effort to transform humanity. I mean, it's true. There is geoengineering going on. There are chemtrails. There is 5G. There is nanotech. There is synthetic biology. There is HAARP. And we know there are people who want to do transhumanism. So, I mean, all of that is real. Now, the problem that I was having with the book when I was reading, it honestly felt like wading through mud. There's a lot of stuff that is verifiable, factual, correct, objective. You can find the sources and read about it. But then the problem is when you're reading it, it just jumps from one paragraph to another with no link. And it's almost like night's move thinking. You're like, where did this come from? Why are we talking about this now? And there's a bold statement being made here. What's the basis behind this? How can you justify this? You know, what do you mean by this? Can you define it? And the book didn't do that. I was really struggling because every paragraph, almost every sentence, I was stopping and having to check things. I'd even go back, and the book has its references in the back. But then I found a lot of these references weren't really helpful either. They're either just comments websites, other people's websites, or, stuff like that. We're not talking necessarily about scientific papers, although, I know scientific papers can be corrupt, but the references weren't always there for things that I didn't understand, complex issues, whether, it be space fence or ether or whatever. And the problem is there was a lot of factual stuff that is undeniable, but then mixed in with it, there was stuff that I was like, what is this? It's almost like gobbledygook. I can't make sense of this. And I was getting a real headache while reading the book. And I thought, oh, I'll get Elana on and she'll explain it. And now, as you know, folks, I like to have a conversation on my podcast. But Elana had a presentation and I was like, okay, like this is quite complicated stuff. I mean, I barely understood the book. Like I didn't understand the book, if I'm going to be honest with you, although it's fascinating and I'm like hooked, like unidentified flying objects, ionic propulsion, ionospheric, plasma injection and direct energy weapons. I mean, anti-gravity devices. I mean, it's like, whoa. So, you're getting right into it. You want to read all this stuff, but then none of it made sense to me. And I thought, am I just being dumb? Okay, I'll get Elana to explain everything. But then, she had this presentation ready. She wanted to do a presentation as opposed to a conversation. So, and I said to her before we pressed record, can I please interject? I want to be able to ask you things I'm not sure about. And it became very clear that she's not used to that. She's used to just giving a presentation. And she did. So in the first live stream, which is about 2 hours, for 1 hour, 15 minutes, she gives a presentation, which is not typical of the podcast, but I thought, hey ho. And, if you're listening on audio, like Apple Podcasts, switch over to YouTube, Rumble, or Substack. Substack's a great app. Okay. So, you do need to watch this podcast, not listen to it, because there's lots of slides. But even in that presentation, that 1 hour, 15 minute, I was very generous. I gave her a lot of time. I wasn't sure about stuff that she was saying. And when I tried to get clarification, she wouldn't really answer the question. She would start on another tangent. And I was like, yeah, well, a lot of people do that. That's not unusual. But then at 1 hour 15, that's when I was getting like, oh man, there's so much I want to talk to him. We're almost running out of time. And by the end of the 2 hours, I just wasn't satisfied. And I felt frustrated because I hadn't read enough of the book. So I couldn't really push back on some of the stuff she said. So I said, please come back for live stream 2, which we did this week. And by this point, I've read a lot more of the book. You can see like little dog ears, like where I've bent the pages because I wanted to pick her brains about stuff. And to be honest, there's like over 100 places where I want to ask her things. And like I said, there's a lot of truth and factual stuff in it, but then there's a lot of stuff, conjecture, hypothesis, opinion, which, I want to understand where's that coming from? Where's the factual basis of that statement coming from? So we did the second podcast, but again, Elana dived straight into her presentation and was going over pretty much what we did the first podcast. And you can sense I'm just getting a little bit angsty and going, come on, let's go. Come on, move along. And it's not until 45 minutes in that I eventually go, right, enough of that. Let's talk about the book and some of the statements that you're making. And can we get some clarification about this? And when I did, I think this is where I was really disappointed, because Elana would literally reply to me, look, I don't know. I can't explain that. I'm asking her like very simple questions from her book where she's talking about frequencies and stuff like that. And I'm saying, what do you mean by this? And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, but you wrote the book. And she goes, I know, can't tell you. And I asked a few more questions like this, and it kind of got embarrassing because I just didn't feel comfortable. I'll give you an example. Here's one. Okay. So the truth is that magnetic, electrical, gravitational, nuclear, thermal, plasmic, and acoustic and other radioactive energies are neither decoupled, separated, nor broken down, but in a state of harmonic unification. Harmonics means that everything is tuned to everything else. New Zealand pilot Bruce Cathy's book on harmonics are essential reading in order to grasp what it means to live on a planet whose grid system is composed of two electromagnetic fields that interlock and are out of phase. And I simply asked, what two electromagnetic fields, how are they interlocking and how are they out of phase? And she couldn't answer that. And there is a reference 5, and if you go back and look at reference 5 at the back of the book, it means diddly squat, doesn't explain anything. And then the next sentence then goes from, out of phase to the communications harmonic is 16,944. And 695 is a gravity harmonic or reciprocal of light. And then I went, what's 16,944? And what's the 695? What's the gravity harmonic and reciprocal of light? And she couldn't answer that. And I was like, this is strange. And then I said, the next sentence is 7.82 hertz alpha brainwave and Schumann resonance is tuned to the 695 gravity harmonic. Can you just please explain that? And how do you then jump into the next paragraph about the USS Eldridge? And again, she couldn't answer that. And I had someone in the audience, God bless him, Peter, and he was commenting and saying, go easy on Elana. And I was like, I am going easy on Elana. I'm genuinely, like, this isn't contrary to what some podcasters might think, or Robert Malone. I'm not out to get my guests. I'm not out to embarrass them or have an argument with them. I'm not that kind of guy. Like, trust me. I'm just that curious kid who goes, why? What's that? Why? Where? I mean, that's me. Like, I'm still that kid. And like, when you say things and, you're talking about quite profound things, in this book, from anti-gravity devices to mind control using directed energy and, stuff like that. I want to understand this. And then, so when I'm asking the questions, I'm literally just asking questions. And I think I maybe asked, I don't know how many I asked, 5 or 6. And then Peter was like, Ahmed, like, go easy, stop, and I felt, yeah. I mean, the thing is, and I had 100. I've got literally 100 questions I could ask from this book, like 100. But after just those initial questions, I felt Eliana was shutting down, and it was just getting a bit embarrassing and awkward. I felt uncomfortable, and I'll be honest with you, I was a little bit disappointed that the author of the book couldn't answer questions from her book. It just didn't make sense to me. Like, why is that? And this is where I've been thinking about things, which, I think it's important to recognize that not everything that's in the mainstream is a lie or bad. And not everything that's in the alternative scene, including healthcare or media, is necessarily truthful and good. Just like not everyone who is asleep is a terrible bad person, and not everyone who's awake and aware is a wonderful decent human being. I've learned the hard way this isn't true. It's really not true. You can have someone who's fast asleep and is just a lovely human being, and you can have someone wide awake and is an arrogant see you next Tuesday and narcissistic evil bastard. Like, seriously, like, that's what I've realized. Now, I'm not saying that I don't believe Eliana and I believe she's out to mislead or being dishonest or anything like that. No. I'm just saying I don't trust and believe everything someone says to me. I question everything. And that's why I was questioning Eliana. And I was a bit disappointed that she wasn't able to give me the answers that I wanted to. And I think it is important that we get some answers from her, because her message is pretty doom and gloom. We're all fracked, basically. They're spraying us like bugs. They're geoengineering us. They've got energy weapons, advanced technology, mind control, nanobots in our blood, apparently, every single one of us. And we're no longer human, and we're becoming into these transhuman people, whether we like it or not. And there's no solution. There's no answers. It's the ultimate in fear porn. Okay, and I don't know if I buy into that. I'll be honest with you. Yes, there is an agenda. Yes, they're doing certain things, but are they as far ahead in their plans as, like, this book makes it out to be? And are we as powerless as this book makes us out to be? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. So look, she might be absolutely correct about every single thing, and she's just not very good at communicating her thoughts, and she's just like that. And there are some very intelligent people who can be like that, and I'm just simply not smart enough to figure it out. Or it might be that she's giving us bits of truth peddled with bits of half-truths, opinions, assumptions, theories, and actually it's not true. It's not true, and it doesn't make sense because it doesn't make sense. Now, one thing I've learned is never ever to ignore my gut instinct. And my gut instinct is screaming at me that I can't trust everything that's in this book. Okay? So I'm going to play the last half an hour of our 3.5-hour podcasts, because I want you to listen to that exchange that I have with Elana. And after that exchange, you can then decide whether you want to listen to the rest of the podcast. But what I don't want you to do is listen to 3 hours of that podcast and then listen to my exchange with her and go, oh, for goodness sake, well, what is that all about? So, yeah. Like I said, you know, no disrespect to anybody. I thank Elana for coming on my show. I thank her for her opinions. I do not have to agree with everything my guest says. And I can respectfully, politely say I don't agree. And I think that's the case with a lot of what's in this book and Elana's thoughts. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep questioning and shouldn't keep digging and looking into things, and that there aren't truths in what she's saying. Absolutely. But I think it's, you know, truth is a difficult thing. And, you know, you can have part of the truth, like a tiny little window. And if you don't see the full picture, then, you know, you don't really appreciate what's going on. You know, that image of the elephant? If you look at just one part of the elephant, you'd think it's one animal. Then you feel another part, you think it's another animal. You see the whole big picture, you go, oh, it's an elephant. So, you know, I think it's very important you see the full picture. I think it's very important you get information and put it into context and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, look, fascinating conversation. Tell me what you guys think. Like, pop it in the you know, comments and give me some feedback. You know, like I said, I'm open-minded. If some of you are diehard Elana fans, don't hate on me. Like, I'm literally just pursuing the truth in my clumsy manner. You know, this is just me. Look, I am who I am. And yeah, tell me what you think. And very quickly, just a reminder, I have a consultation service, folks. Just look at the latest feedback from Neil today. Absolutely brilliant, non-stop sensible advice. The food information was a real eye-opener. And as someone newly diagnosed with Parkinson's, no stone was left unturned, with an honesty that was much appreciated. Folks, that's what my consultations are like. If you've got a health issue, acute or chronic, you want to be fit and healthy. You've had enough. You're like, look in the mirror and go, no, pick my brains. I'm here for you. Okay. I'm here for you. How many doctors are there out there that are on the same page as you? And you know, is going to tell you like it is. And then, folks, please, can you leave a 5-star review? If you love my podcast and, you know, you're not a paid subscriber, you can support it that way. Share my content. Tell your friends and family. I went to get some treatment with Sam Ramsey. He's been on my podcast before. And God bless him. He was like, I told my GP about you. I told this client about you. I told this client about you. I was like, thanks, Sam. God bless you. And, you know, stuff like that really helps. And then remember to visit my shop section. There's affiliate section, and I've got lots of products that you can use, that my family use, that we love, and use my code and you get a discount. And lastly, to my paid subscribers, I love you. Thank you so much for helping me and supporting me and making this show what it is. And all the rest of you, thank you for being here. And if ever you want to help out, you can always buy me a coffee or get a subscription for just 3 months or 6 months. Every little bit helps, folks. All right. Lots of love. Bye-bye. It's undeniable that there is such a thing as synthetic biology. I know that. You can just look at millions of papers. Synthetic biology, a bridge between artificial and natural cells. This is from University of California, Davis. And they talk about artificial cells and, you know, how they make them. And there you go. There's an artificial cell. There's a natural cell. They talk about it. Genetic circuits, communication, you name it. This construction of the artificial cells, you know, the shell, the engine, the information. It's crazy. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. There is artificial synthetic biology is 100% real. I don't doubt that for a second. All right. I get that. And I have concerns about that. But I'll give an example. Look at these morgellons. What do you think of these morgellons? Are they called morgellons? Or how do you pronounce them?
Morgellons?
Yeah, what do you think of these?
Yeah, the Morgellons, that's a bad name anyway. Clifford calls those cross-domain biology.
Do you think these are pretty impressive morgellons, aren't they?
Yeah, it's an impressive photo. What's going on with it?
It's actually a magnification of a sofa. There you go. It's a sofa. So what I'm trying to say is everything underneath a microscope can look very impressive. Okay?
Right.
There's a something crawling, a bug. What I'm trying to say is, under a microscope, everything looks fancy schmancy. And I want to know, what exactly are these things made out of? And I want really tight controls about what we're looking at underneath a microscope. Because, like I said, I've looked down a microscope lots of times, and it's just weird and wonderful stuff, and you don't know what's what. But the synthetic biology is definitely real. I mean, there's conferences and conventions several times a year around the world, and you can look them up. You can look up the papers presented. You can look up the posters. You can look up what they're talking about. They're talking about making artificial pumps and channels. They're talking about like building scaffolding within it. I mean, yeah, 100%. I accept all that. But I want to just go back to your book, because listen, honestly, I've had such a headache reading your book, because normally I just get through it by just being like wading through mud, and it's just terminology and stuff, and I've just really, really struggled with it. I'll give an example. Like, you jump, and when you're reading it, just jumps from one thing to another, and I'm finding it very difficult to like tether it down and understand coherently what the actual message is. So I'll give an example. I'll read something out to you. This is page 148. And you said, harmonics means that everything is tuned to everything else. New Zealand pilot Bruce Cathy's book on harmonics are essential reading in order to grasp what it means to live on a planet whose grid system is composed of two electromagnetic fields that interlock and are out of phase. Like, what two electromagnetic fields interlock, and how are they out of phase?
Well, that would be the two poles. That would be the two poles. Yeah.
So it's the South Pole and the North Pole are the two electromagnetic fields?
Mm-hmm.
How are they out of phase?
I don't know.
But you wrote this. You've written there.
I wrote a lot of things in there that I don't know.
Okay, let me read the whole. Let me read the whole. Let me read the whole paragraph so that I can just understand it. So you wrote, the two electromagnetic fields that interlock and are out of phase. The communications harmonic is 16,944, and 695 is a gravity harmonic, or reciprocal of light. What does that mean?
Well, yeah, that's harmonics for you. That's 695. That's the one. I mean, you know, one of the things I tried to do in the book was to give people an idea of my own reading and my own study, such as Bruce Cathy. You can't beat that guy for harmonics. I mean, the CIA tried to get him to work for them.
I know, but I'm by the way, this isn't me trying to catch you out. Please don't get worried. That I'm not doing that. I'm just genuinely saying, I've been reading this and my head hurts. I've got so many folded bits where I'm like, what does that even mean?
I think you're going to have to do research on a lot of this stuff, because it's just a book for the public. It's really.
But I know. But in a simple way, explain to me, what does the communications harmonic 16,944 mean? And what's that got to do with 695 gravity harmonic? And then the next line is the 7.2 hertz alpha brainwave and Schumann resonance is tuned to the 695 gravity harmonic. What does that all mean? Please explain that to me.
Well, that's
I'm dumb. Like I'm a dumb person. Just explain to me what that means.
Yeah, I don't know that I know enough to really explain it to you. I really don't. But I'm telling you about Bruce Cathy and trying to, I mean, there are people who read me who can go much further than I can. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I found him to be I had to read his books 3 times each in order to understand the harmonics, mathematics. I'm not a mathematics person.
No, it's just I'm trying to understand the whole weaponization of magnetism. I'm reading the chapter, and none of it makes sense to me. And you're like, it was just jumping from one thing. You're talking about Russian scientists 1 minute, then you're talking about biological effects of the Earth's magnetic field. Then suddenly, within the next sentence, it's about USS Eldridge, and you talk about these magnetic fields interlocking and frequencies. Right. Then the next thing you talk about the combination of Hilbert space, von Neumann's brilliant calculations, and the advanced Levinson recursion for multiple time series revise the questions of whether the leading physicists and mathematicians of their day were the secret driving force behind something far more serious than a simple degaussing. Farrell seems to think that the scientists involved in the U.S. Eldridge experiments were taken by surprise. So, and you're going from one thing to another, and then suddenly we're on unified field theory, and I'm like, whoa, slow down. What is going on here? What are we talking? And then, you know, the next page you're talking about CERN, and it's like, I can't keep up. What I'm trying to say is I'm finding it really freaking difficult. And, you know, you wrote about, like, on the next page after that, you know, how the CIA, like the Russians, were blasting their American embassy staff. But the next paragraph, you're saying the CIA sent a crack team of American scientists to the Gomel site in Russia to install a 40-ton SQUID superconducting quantum interference device. Why would they do that? Why would the CIA, when their embassy staff are being, you know, blasted with these waves and whatnot, then send a 40-ton device during the middle of the Cold War? I mean,
I think what I was indicating, without rubbing people's noses in it, is that the CIA was certainly working with the Russians on what they were doing with the woodpecker. I mean, then that must be the place. I don't know which book it's in, but where when the Russians with their woodpecker, which was early HAARP, by the way, that they targeted Eugene, Oregon, the suicide rate doubled or tripled or something like that. It seemed that our CIA was working with the Russians. That's exactly what it seemed. But I didn't want to say it entirely because I can't really prove it other than by seeing a certain pattern of behavior.
Okay, so
like
we just jump from lots of different things, like one thing to another, and I feel like sometimes there's just not enough evidence to back it up, and you need to be careful. Like, for example, on page 165, you're talking about, similar to the effects produced by the Montauk experiments, airplanes may drop from the sky when the Large Hadron Collider is running full tilt. And then you talk about 2015 Germanwings flight was cruising, and then 127 miles from CERN, and it crashed in the French Alps. But then you also mentioned 2014 Malaysia disappearance and Indonesian air crash in the Java Sea, and it's like, what's that got to do with CERN? Like, airplanes crash all the time. Why those two examples? And but then you move on. You then start talking about CERN and South Atlantic Anomaly. It's like, so what about the Malaysian crash and the Indonesian crash linked it to the CERN? You know, that's why I wanted to know, and I couldn't see on the page because you mentioned it and you just moved on, and I was like, what's that? So why is that linked?
Well, I probably already have covered that CERN oversees the magnetosphere, and the magnetosphere is crucial to magnetic experiments going on down here. I don't know.
And then
I don't remember the order in which I presented, but you don't have to read that book.
No, I need to. I'm so important. So, like you said, CERN sits on the French-Swiss border in geomagnetic alignment with Greenland and the Great Pyramid of Giza. What geomagnetic alignment? Like, which one?
Well, the geomagnetic alignment would be in the geomagnetic field. That's what we walk on, right? That's the corollary of the magnetosphere up in space. Is we're walking on its other side in the Earth is the geomagnetic field.
Okay, because I ran that through all the search engines. I ran it through cloud AI. I ran it through everything, and it
geomagnetic field.
Yeah, no, what you just said, that it's in the same alignment, and it said no, it's not. It's not that's not true.
Well, I don't know. Do I have the footnote with it?
No. That's the thing. Like, no, there's no footnote. There's no reference.
Am I referring to someone talking about it?
No. How much do these magnetic lines of force influence us, or must now be asked? I mean, you talk about it sitting on a former temple. Temple of Apollon. Anyway, so look, let's leave the book for a second. I just want really punchy in the next 10-15 minutes, straight explanations, so that someone doesn't have to listen to 90 minutes or 2 hours of us to understand what's going on. I want you to explain what is this space fence? Why are they ionizing, or charging the ionosphere? Why have they controlled it? Why are they pumping ions in it, plasma in it? Is it just weather modification? Because you say, it's important for controlling us. And I mean, like, well, how? Because in the book, you even said, like, they use it to directly control our minds. Is that true? That they can control our minds and make us think and do? And you said it's not just hallucinations anymore. They can put thoughts in your head and control you that way. Is that real?
Yeah, but I don't know what you're saying can do that. What did you say can do that?
No, you said the government has the technology now to use...
To control your mind?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's been, for decades, they've had that.
But how?
Well, that's MK Ultra, but that gets into...
No, not MK Ultra. I'm talking about, like, can they do it with wireless devices? Can they do it with HAARP or frequency devices?
Frequency.
How do they do that?
Well, they would broadcast it in some way that it goes straight to your particular, what they call evoked potential. Each of us have a certain number that our brain and our, I don't know, maybe the genetics as well, operates at. And if they have that number, then they can send it to you when you're in the middle of a crowd and nobody else is affected.
So what is that evoke number, whatever?
Evoke potential? It's a frequency. It's a frequency.
So every human being has a unique frequency?
Yes.
And okay, well, that makes sense because we're all unique. And how would you measure this frequency?
With instruments that can measure that sort of thing.
What device would that be?
I don't know what the name of it would be. They talk about an EEG that is up in certain satellites and certain jets that has much more capability than the EEG you're used to in hospitals. So I would assume they'd use something like that, and it would be from up the upper atmosphere.
So what? Something like HAARP? They would use something like HAARP to
HAARP is an ionospheric heater that's on the Earth.
Okay, so what's beaming down to control our minds? Is it on a satellite? Is it handheld gun?
It would probably be some sort of beam technology. I would imagine it would be similar to HAARP in that they'd probably be using phased array antennas.
So I just want this is what I mean. I just want more specifics. This is what I mean, because then you're mentioning in the book, like, mind control. I was like, what? Like they can directly control your mind from inside your house, from any device. I was like, how? Like what? And it's like, and when you're even saying, like, I imagine, I want specifics. I think I want evidence. Like where? How are they doing this? Because people contact me all the time and say, oh, I've got someone's controlling my mind. My neighbors, the governments are in the neighbor's house and they're controlling my mind. I don't know if they're crazy or not. And what I'm trying to understand is, like, where is this all coming from? Where did you find this information from?
Well, from all sorts of thousands of research papers and patents. And yeah, I mean, I haven't been making stuff up.
No, I know that. I'm just trying to understand it. So they're heating up the ionosphere. And the reason they're doing that is why?
Is to feed our atmosphere and ionize it and keep it ionized for radio frequency and microwave operations. So
without that ionization of the ionosphere, like
you can't have the amount of wireless connectivity that we have, and it couldn't be used both by the military and civilians. But we're all using it because now they have plenty; they can control it.
So what, they're doing it to like literally increase the bandwidth? That's why they're doing it?
I don't know if bandwidth is the right term. I don't think so.
But you're saying,
ionization is simply that there's that everything is electrical now. The atmosphere is tremendously electrical. I think you see that in the quality of heat in the summer is really extraordinarily different from what it used to be. It's now more like a microwave heat. And a lot of people complain about it.
I don't know about that.
But new generations, they don't know any different. So for them, it's probably seems natural. I would
So so global warming is apparently real, but it's man-made, not because of fossil fuels. It's because the powers that be are heating the ionosphere.
that would be one reason, yeah.
No. I want to hear what is your thoughts about it? Like, is that correct? Is that this is what I've gleaned from your book. Is that your hypothesis about what's going on?
Well, that's one thing. I mean, another thing would be just the amount of electromagnetic operations every day in our atmosphere has certainly heated the planet.
But
Certainly.
but this electromagnetic thing, I thought a lot of the stuff that's happening is actually fiber optics under the seabed, under the ground. A lot of the stuff that's cellular is also low down. It's not like when you go up in a plane, you don't get any cellular signal. There is no signal 30,000 feet up in the sky, never mind 100 miles up the sky. So how much communications is actually even traveling in the ionosphere?
Well, I don't know about in the ionosphere, but I know in our atmosphere, everything's packed here. I mean, I don't know what happens when you look at the air, but I guess I've trained myself to see that it's pretty much full of waves. I mean, endless waves.
No,
Endless
I get that.
frequencies.
But I'm just trying to figure out why they're heating up the ionosphere, which is 50 to 100 miles up in space, a lot higher up than our visible atmosphere right now, which is just a few miles up. Why would they need to charge that with ions? What does that? Why would
Well,
that be the case?
they use those ions for what we're talking about, like civilian stuff, but they also use it as a weapon for like when they make those storms and earthquakes and tornadoes and all the things, the droughts, volcanic eruptions. All of those can be electromagnetically triggered, and they actually see. I think the key that I don't get the sense you understand what I'm saying. That it's a dual use. Using the ionosphere is a dual use thing. Yes, it has a lot to do with civilian stuff, phone calls and that sort of thing, and fast movie downloads, etc. But it primarily it's a weapon system, is how I see it.
And you say that it can create like holograms as well?
Well, the ionosphere heaters can definitely with their beams.
And even modify and control gravity?
Yeah,
How?
definitely. Just like the scalar plates, they can move those scalar plates right under the earth. They're using scalar technology. They're not using necessarily just electromagnetic, but you can. This weapon system is extraordinary because it has multiple ways of controlling our reality.
Okay, so I tried to understand the chapter on gravity and ether because I'm fascinated by ether. And again, I just could not understand that. So what is your understanding of what ether is? And, please tell me.
Well, the chapter where I go deep into ether is chapter 2, I think, of Under an Ionized Sky, that book, where I talk about how ether was banned in the United States in the 1920s as a scientific concept. And to me, ether is what is throughout the universe, is just this substance throughout the universe. But it's impossible to for the present day science anyway, to measure and and measurement is half of science in the West, and so it was eliminated from science, and now what's coming back is plasma, because plasma is the next phase in my mind of ether. Ether is primary matter, prima materia. And then you have an electromagnetic event of some sort, and you have a plasma event, and then plasma eventually becomes matter. I mean, that's kind of the way I see it in my mind. I don't know how deep I went into where you're looking at ether. But ether is primary matter to me.
In this chapter, it was very short. You didn't really explain what ether was. You didn't really say, to be honest. That's what was, I think, quite confusing. You talked about, electric universe theory, living universe. You talked about the Scottish mathematician James Clerk Maxwell on electromagnetism. You talk about speed of light. So this is what I mean. You go from one thing to another very quickly without really explaining it. And then I finish the chapter and I'm still none the wiser, and I've got a headache, and I'm thinking, what have I missed? And I go back and I read it 4 times and I'm still none the wiser. And I'm like, I don't understand this. So and so in the chapter in Ether, you're talking about anti-gravity devices. I mean, do you think they've got anti-gravity devices?
Oh, yeah. They have since World War II. Those would be some of those UFOs or UAPs that they talk about. Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Okay. And then what about the weaponization of magnetism? How does that work?
Well, it seems one of the things that is a piece of information that has come to light is that we now have much more magnetite in us than we used to. So my question was, are they delivering magnetite so that we become more magnetic beings and therefore can be manipulated by magnetics of some sort? It's my question. Yeah, I do wonder.
How do you know we've got more magnetite in it?
Well, they've measured it. There have been lots of articles in science magazines.
Okay. All right. Listen, I think I'm going to get hopefully more answers from Clifford Carnicom. I want to get to the bottom of all of this and try and understand this, and I just wanted to understand 5G more and 6G, how is this being used against us? How is it being used to make us transhuman? And, at some point you talk about transhuman 1.0 and they can control us and manipulate us. Then it's like, why bother with transhuman 2 if they've already got what they want?
Well, no, this is transhuman. This is a hybrid phase. And I think they eventually want it where your body, the physical organic matter, is gone. And now you have basically what they call in silica, which is a completely machine parts kind of human that they want, transhuman they want. I think that's the end goal, is something that can entirely eradicate the organic. And I really do believe that. I think they hate this organic world.
I know. What I want is not hypothetical. I want evidence.
I don't think I know enough for all the evidence that you're looking for. I think
I know, but it's just
you're going to have to go and research yourself. This is just to make people aware of how far this science has gone askew, in my opinion, off the rails, whatever you want to call it, in its love for synthetic biology that it uses in biowarfare. I don't know. That's how I see it.
Okay. Right, listen, final question of the day, Elana, and thank you so much for spending, extra time with me. I really appreciate it. Listen, you're on your deathbed, about to meet your maker. What words of wisdom and advice would you give to your loved ones?
My loved ones? Well, they're all so different. I don't really know. It's not a question that really inspires me.
Well, I've had 485 guests and they've all been able to answer it. 495 and they've all been able to answer it. First thing that hits your head, Eliana, come on. Oh, you've got all your loved ones around you. You're about to die. What words of wisdom and advice would you pass on to them? You're trying to tell me you've got no words of wisdom to share? Come on, surely. There's something in that head of yours.
Well, I know the greatest challenge of our day is definitely remaining human. And I would wish that everyone I have loved could find a way to remain human in an age that seems bent on destruction of the human and deifying of the machine.
Okay, but that's not words of wisdom. What is a human? At least tell me that. What is a human to you?
It's a moral being with tremendous consciousness possibility.
Okie dokie. Cool. Listen, do me a favor. Please send me a lovely picture of yourself, head and shoulders, which I need for the thumbnail for the podcast. For my screenshot. Not from 20 years ago, please. A recent one, preferably against a plain background. And can you email me any links that you want mentioned in the show notes? That would be super helpful. Alrighty. Thank you so much. I'm going to start. Right, Elana. Lovely to chat to you. Now, I know it's a bit annoying because you can't see me, but I can see you. But I don't know why. It's just set up it is. And you're very organized. You got a beautiful presentation. But listen, it's so nice to have you on. I'm not going to lie. I've not finished reading your book. And there's a reason for it. Let me explain. I mean, if you look at my studio, it's littered with books. And I'll be honest with you, I get through about 60 to 70% of the book by the time I speak to my guest. And I've got a gist of the book by then. And, I skim through the end because I'm just so busy.
Oh,
but your book caught me off guard because normally I'm quite smart and switched on. But you're using so much fancy terminology that I have to keep stopping every fracking page. Not even just the page, like every paragraph to Google or look up what the frack something means. And that, and I'm not talking about just ionosphere. I mean, I'm talking about like even more complicated stuff like that. And then I have to look up some of your references because then I think, is she just making this shit up? Like, what the hell is this shit? Does she even know what she's talking about? Is this legit? Like, I don't even know if this is legit or not. So I'm looking up people, I'm looking up names, I'm looking up terminology, and then I get sidetracked. Then I'm looking at the ionosphere and then the magnetosphere, and then it's just getting freaking complicated. And before I know it, I've only read 4 pages, and it's like, and an hour's gone by, and I'm like, oh shit, and it's like that's why. It's quite a difficult book to go through. I mean, I'll give you an example, like Alfvén waves. I'm like, what the hell? And then, there's another one that guy, what was it called? The Birkeland currents. And then I'm reading about Birkeland and then how he was like this Scandi guy and he's up there, theorizing what the Aurora Borealis is. And then he's proven correct. And then even this guy 100 years before that, Celsius, was predicting something similar and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I just start going down these tangents. Then you're reading about the Gulf streams and everything. So I apologize for not having I think I'm probably, I don't know, a fifth of the way through the book, which is not very much, I admit. But it's okay. Yeah. Maybe I think what this means is you're going to come back for part 2, part 3, because there's a shit ton to go through. But in a nutshell, right, you're going to talk about the hidden technologies of HAARP, chemtrails, 5G, 6G.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how long you're planning on going on for. I was thinking maybe like 90 minutes to 2 hours, but I don't know if you can get to the point where you're covering nanotech and synthetic biology and transhumanism.
We'll make sure we get there, but I want to make sure that, because I know you have a varied listenership, and many of them are familiar with the basics of HAARP, etc., from the early days, but not most of them. I think many versus most. So we'll go quickly through, and you want me to pause here and there. If I don't pause enough and say, "Do you have any questions?" Feel free to interrupt me, because it's just a way to trigger the memory is where we're at now. And I feel the need to do that because if I just jump into the synthetic biology, you won't understand the seriousness of our situation now as human beings, because we're being caught in what I'm calling now, I like the term, it's a military term, we're caught in a pincher effect. And the pincher effect is there's chemicals, big pharma chemicals coming down on us from the chemical trails. And that's all, of course, electromagnetic, because they are zapping the sky with all kinds of waves and different frequencies. And then you've got the other side of the pincher effect here on the Earth, which is the jabs, is the needles, all the way from the time a baby is born here to what we went through in 2020 to 2024, 25. So, yeah, and what you're experiencing is understandable because you're learning a new vocabulary. And it's always that way. I mean, it's like when you're learning a language as a kid. Unless the people speak and say the words, you're not going to get them into your kit, and you're not going to be able to learn that language. And so it's
Absolutely.
Just feel like okay, this is another term, Birkeland currents. There's several ways to talk about Birkeland currents, for example, not just as Birkeland currents. So, but very essential, very essential. Alvin waves, very essential. I only included the essentials here. I'm not giving an entire geodetic course on the Earth, but here's all the books I've written, just to make sure everybody knows. Now, the ones on the left, those are a whole other show, a whole other interview. That's the series, and I wanted you to know about this. That's the series that I wrote about America after JFK's assassination. I had tea with President Kennedy in the Rose Garden when I was at Girls Nation, and Bill Clinton was at Boys Nation. We were both standing in the Rose Garden. I didn't know him. He doesn't know me. But we were really gobsmacked, as the British say, with this amazing guy who stood up in front of us and spoke. So that was the beginning of my political consciousness. I'm the grandchild of immigrants, and I was raised in an immigrant community for the first 7 or 8 years of my life in Detroit, Michigan. And therefore have always sort of been an American, yes, but not easily, because my name is Romanian. I was set up to be Romanian, but in America, and I loved my childhood in the neighborhood where real culture was there, real culture of many peoples and many languages every day, I heard. So all of that went into preparing me to be the witness and the commentator on these amazing times that we're now being thrust into. At least it feels like we're being thrust into. But the truth is, we had lots of choices for all these years, all the way through the Cold War, and then through this sort of silent war that we're in now of the media. And we had choices, and we didn't make the right ones. We just didn't know enough here in America, and so now we're really caught, and we're caught in this pincher effect.
All right, okay. Listen, let's go through one slide after another. I know you've written tons of books. I'll put this all up, but this is the one we're talking about. This is the one I've got. And
Yeah.
like I said, there's a ton of freaking jargon, and you've got a glossary. Don't get me wrong. You've got, I appreciate
Yeah.
that, and you got lots of references. But I mean, things like, you know, just even for some people, what is an ionosphere? But then there's other things like ionosphere heaters, and then there's
Yeah.
like space fencing, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's just earth rings, and then the CD-ROM ring, and then, you know, and you say like NASA stated this in 2014. And then I'm googling, did NASA say this in 2014? And I'm like, oh yeah, shit, they did. And yeah, it's just very interesting. So let's start with geoengineering, weather modification, and, you know,
Yeah.
HAARP and all that kind of stuff, because you talk about how America and the US Air Force, I think it was 2014, said they've got full dominance of the weather system. But I think even Lyndon Johnson was talking about controlling the weather, and there was operations where they would cause early monsoons, for example, in Vietnam
Right.
or whatever. And, you know, I think they were even threatening Pakistan and India with a monsoon. And I've heard that America can cause earthquakes, can cause monsoons, can cause droughts. And one of the sticks that they employ with countries is to say, look, you know, forget a full-on invasion. We're just going to wreck your country. We're going to destroy it unless you toe the line and do as you're
That's
told.
right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that goes back to like the 50s and 60s. So let's talk about that and then go on to HAARP and everything. Is that okay?
Okay. Okay. So here's the question of our time. What we're dealing with is, I'm going to take us all the way from geoengineering, which geo means earth, to synthetic biology, synbio engineering. Or bioengineering. You've probably heard that term. But this is synthetic biology. This is not the same as biology at all. It is artificial, and this has to do with the transhumanism that our masters of the universe are attempting to drag us into. And they're doing it through this pincher effect. I maintain that. And that's what we're going to add to really begin to deal with this. And what we should do at this late point in the game is, we have to come to terms with what it means to be human. And that's tough, because we are inundated by lies, disinformation. We're known as probably the most materialistic culture in the world. And that materialism has pretty much gobbled up all of our belief in things of yesteryear, like God, Christ, what meditation can do for you, what all the things that have to do with spirituality is sort of like seen as a lifestyle movement. It's not seen as essential like it was in yesteryear for people who at least went to church or temple every week in order to keep that spiritual life inside alive. That's not really happening anymore. But it doesn't mean it's gone. It's still there, waiting for our attention.
Yep. Yep.
So let me read this. This is just a real quick paragraph that shows how we're going to proceed here. Decades of research unveil a comprehensive expose of the transhumanist agenda, the transformation of humanity into a synthetic slave class by means of biotechnology, genetic engineering, molecular nanotechnology, and artificial intelligence. Weather control is now a global reality thanks to the aerosol chemicals, chemtrails, that maintain the ionized atmosphere needed for a myriad of, quote, dual use, unquote, military and civilian, wireless operations. The air we breathe, the soil we grow our food in, and the water we drink have all been altered away from nature and toward an artificial metaverse. Meanwhile, Big Pharma injects nano-sized hardware and software in vivo into our bodies that activate a transhumanist brain-computer interface, BCI, with artificial intelligence. Transhumanist public-private partnerships point to how the military doctrine of full-spectrum dominance depends upon the secret space program and 5G, 6G space fence, or as you call it, smart grid lockdown. So that's kind of where we're at now, and that's the challenge. Now, where did it all start? Let's go back this way. Okay, so this is the most important thought that I went through during my writing of this last book. And the most recent book is now in manuscript and with the publisher Inner Traditions, the same publisher that published the Geoengineered Transhuman. And it's basically what I absolutely believe. We cannot solve a problem with the same kind of thinking that created it. Now, we're not taught that in school, as you well know. In fact, we're not taught to think at all in school. Truthfully, we're taught to recite and take multiple choice tests and repeat the words of others. So we cannot solve a problem with the same kind of thinking that created. So I'm going to try to what I try to do in Remaining Human, standing up to the transhuman nanomachine takeover of Homo sapiens. That's the title, Remaining Human, standing up to the transhuman nanomachine takeover of Homo sapiens. What I try to do is to give the reader enough information to look at the past, particularly the years 2020 to 2024, what happened to us, and then where we're at now, and then how are we going to deal with the really new specter on the horizon, which is synthetic biology. And that's where we're going to end this PowerPoint. We're going to go through to see how the sky has been set up, our environment has been set up to begin the process already. We're already 25 years into the transhuman hybrid process. Get that straight. I'm not going to play footsie with you and make it sound nice. We are 25 years into this. That's how long a secret can be kept, right in front of our faces with enough good liars. And that's what we need to confront. And how, but before we do that, we have to decide, do I want to be human, and what is being human?
Well, it depends, what does it mean to be human? It depends on the given day that you ask me that. Today, I'd say what it means to be human is to be totally fucked up. On another front, I would say to be human means, we're a reflection, creation of the divine. We should be, looking at this existence as being a test, as an experience to prove our spirit and soul. We come into this world with nothing. We leave with nothing. But too many people try and collect and get things. Why? No, what we should do is leave with our souls full, bursting with experience and knowledge and love. And I think that's what it means to be human, to be curious, to be loving, to be kind, to be, inquisitive, and to look at the wonder of this world and marvel at the creator's handiwork. I think there's so many things you could say what it means to be human, but right now, today, I think it means to be totally fucked up. Like our priorities, everything is just a joke. But anyway, that's my quick answer.
Well, yeah, but you said very well what being human is in our best of moments. We know. We have, you only have to see a baby just born to know that they're still, in their eyes, in their face, in their demeanor, is still this innocence of the world they just came from. And now they're here. And their welcoming committee here is a bunch of doctors who jab them with shots. Now, the shots in America are now at 75. throughout childhood all the way to 18. And this welcoming committee starts the whole thing out where it's very difficult now to be human because we're being dragged from nature. Nature is hardly surviving at this point because of its great spiritual beingness. It is able to handle, but its trees are suffering, and all the plants and the soil. And so there obviously is a problem. We know that. So now we're going to go through and get familiar with the territory that has been already assaulted and pretty much taken with technology. And the hidden part at this point really is the technology inside our bodies and our brain, because we are loaded with technology now, and it is a synthetic biological technology. So let's go there. To the Kardashev scale is the sort of map that the technocrats and the technology people and the real scientists, of whom there are probably just a few, the Kardashev scale is named after Nikolai Kardashev, who was a Soviet astrophysicist. And he said that in order to be a really successful civilization, you have to have, number one, full spectrum dominance over the Earth. Number two, full spectrum dominance over the sun. That's our star. And number three, full spectrum dominance eventually over the galaxy after you've claimed dominance over your own solar system.
I learned this reading sci-fi books. It's mentioned in sci-fi books.
Yes. And sci-fi has been the vehicle for a long time. Back in the 19th century, there were science fiction writers feeding the public some concepts that they were not accustomed to, and preparing them. That's what we call pre-programming.
Yeah,
So,
pre-predictive programming. And I believe that because I've been a keen enthusiast of sci-fi since I was a kid, and now I'm looking back going, what the frack? Like, over the last 40 years, like, all this shit has been coming to life. This is insane.
Yeah. And they've been waiting. They've been waiting until they could have the power over our solar system. And so far, so good. They now have pretty much full control, not just the weather either, of planet Earth. And they are seeking and experimenting with things to have full control over our star, the sun. Those two things are well on their way. Now the other will depend upon these two. And at the same time, remember, and I don't have a slide for this, but let's just remember when we supposedly went to the moon in '69. We didn't go to the moon, and probably, it was filmed with a green screen, and it was really to get more money from the taxpayers for the secret space program, which is still on and going strong, but they need a type of human that can get past the Van Allen belts, these radiation belts that are around our planet. They tried to blow the smithereens out of these belts back in the 50s and early 60s with atomic bombs and nuclear bombs, etc. But they all that those did was to create new belts. And so now what they have in mind is a transhuman who's synthetic, and can be the envoy to space. They like to make it sound like they've had astronauts in space. They have not. They have been in the upper atmosphere only, and in fake machines that make it look like they're in an anti-gravity environment. So yeah, we're making our way through the lies. That's a good thing. We're making progress. We're getting through the lies. And we're not waiting for the experts to tell us that they're lies. We're making our own judgments with our own evidence and our own perception. So that's a good thing.
Can I quickly interject? There's man, it's amazing the number of people I've met from all different backgrounds who are very intelligent, very bright, who are like, the Earth isn't even round; it's flat. It's got a firmament over it. Elana Freeland is spreading propaganda, fake news that basically there's space out there. What would you say to that?
Well, I actually have had real experience of being out there, out of body, of course, not in a jet or in some contrivance, but in my, probably not even in my astral body. I would guess the body I was in was a plasma body, but I really don't know. But I went up there. I was up there. And why was I up there? Was I on drugs? No. Was I under the influence of the CIA? I don't think so. I somehow ended up being able to go out of body and zoom up past the moon. I remember passing the moon and seeing how round it was, by the way, for the flat Earth folks. And then I got up into deep space. And the further into deep space I got, the more of a certain gentle matter it was. And what I mean by that is it reminded me totally of an excellent chocolate pudding, because I was sliding silkily into this atmosphere up there. And it was so divine. It was so delightful. And I was just, this is so great. And each time I'd have this thought, like, it's so wonderful up here. Why can't I just stay up here? As soon as I have that thought, zoom, down I came and hovered outside the window through which I could see my physical body and etheric body sleeping. Dear Elana was asleep. And then I looked up again, and my yearning for that experience would get reactivated, and up I'd go. And I did that, I don't know, several times, 6, maybe 7, I don't know. But finally, the last time I was up there, I suddenly realized, well, this is love. This is all love up here. And this is God. This must be God. Is this consciousness that I could feel all around me, and just delicious and delightful. And then I came back down and sat up in the bed. I came in through my feet, by the way, which surprised me. I remember that. And I came in and sat up and looked up and looked up the path I had taken. And ever since then, I've known those things.
So what I would say is that sounds amazing. It sounds like you went on my magic mushroom trip, but that is not enough. That's not scientific hard evidence enough to convince me.
No, it isn't.
Like, but you know what I'm saying. And I do wonder whether the Earth is as big and as round as we think it is, and whether dimensions are correct. Because there's quite a few things the flat earthers say that make me go, that's a really good point.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
But at the same time, I wonder whether the whole flat Earth thing is being planted as a distraction seed as well, to discredit.
Well, I think so. I think it's serving that anyway. Certainly, the Navajo believe in the flat Earth. They have, they make those wonderful, wonderful sand maps. That are so beautiful. I've watched them 2 or 3 times when I lived in the southwest of the United States. Make those maps of what the Earth is. It's a flat disk to them, and it could be. I didn't see that the Earth was round. I only saw that the moon was round. That I can stand behind. But okay, so that's Kardashev. Let's move on.
Yeah. Let's move on.
This is what rings their bells as far as when they're asked to do things that they probably, some of them know are not very moral and that people will suffer for in order for them to accomplish this greatness of civilization by full spectrum dominance. That's my guess. There is the book, the first book I ever read on the chemtrails and HAARP, etc. Angels Don't Play This HAARP. Advances in Tesla Technology by Dr. Nick Begich. And Nick has done amazing work. The book was great. It was the first, reading it, I think, led to a military chopper over my house the following day for about 5 minutes as they, I assume, logged my XY coordinates so that they could put me on some sort of list as being someone reading that book. It was considered dangerous. And fortunately, Nick was okay because he'd already lost his father, if you remember, during the Kennedy period when the assassination had happened and the Warren Commission was put together. His father never came home at a certain point. And so Nick has really put his time into this and now is, I'm not in touch with him. I don't really know him. I'm sure he knows of my work. I know of his. But he is doing a lot with the mind control that HAARP is running. And that's great. I really appreciate that. Here's just a brief whip just to show you synthetic organisms and living machines positioning the products of synthetic biology at the borderline between living and dead matter, or I don't know what it says over there, non-living. And so this is our challenge, because to be synthetic human beings will be to not be human. Human has to do with a living being and very much connected to nature, very much connected to the God that, however you look at God, that created all of this, this fantastic, the uniqueness of our planet. And I do think it's highly, highly unique. So did you have anything on this you wanted to say? I'm just kind of showing it.
No, I wanted to talk about HAARP and weather modification. I'm sorry, the way my brain works, I just want to stick to
that. Yeah, that's fine.
Because, we hear a lot about global warming, which is now changed to climate change, which is very clever, right. That little switch, because global warming is just simply the planet's getting hotter. But then they now everything that happens, whether there's a severe snowstorm, whether there's a flood, drought, whether the temperature goes down or whether it goes up, everything is climate change. So they did that very clever little switch. Most people didn't even notice it. And they're blaming the climate change on man-made fossil fuel usage. And I thought, this is all BS, and maybe the temperature is going up a little bit, but it's just natural and normal. And I thought originally that it was all about just making money and control, controlling us by saying, right, we need to tax you more, we need to stop you from traveling, going on airplane flights, we need to stop you eating meat, and it's just a severe control mechanism while also profiting from us. However, your book kind of alludes to the fact that they've been doing this weather modification deliberately, ionizing the atmosphere, because they need to do that to bring in the transhumanism. And the whole global warming climate change narrative is a cover story for their whole geoengineering, chemtrail, HAARP, ionizing bullshit going on. So this is just very interesting. I was really wanting to hear that from you.
Yeah, okay. That's exactly right. It's another, just, which is very typical of intelligence operations. And you've got to think of this as an intelligence operation. It began with the CIA. The CIA really was very involved in the construction of the HAARP ionospheric heater in Gakona, Alaska. The HAARP stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project. We'll see it in a moment. And that that had to do with the jet planes that were already flying in the late 90s as the HAARP was being constructed in Alaska in those late from 95, and it was to understand that the jets flying. Everybody said it was contrails. Contrail is a condensation trail. It's water and ice crystals, basically, with a little bit of particulates, nanoparticles, for example. But it was that use of ionized particulates in the atmosphere was essential, because you really can't have all the wireless connectivity that we have now, and we have just everything is wireless now. You can't have that unless you have a lot of particulates. You can't have it in like a vacuum, and so that's the key. Is that while they're building HAARP, and there were other ionospheric heaters, yes, but none with the power that could be elicited from HAARP. And at the same time, and we'll see that in a moment, they were taking control of the ionosphere. The ionosphere starts at about 20 miles above us and goes up to, I think it's 200. And then it eventually locks in with the magnetosphere. But the ionosphere is the place where it is loaded with ions, plus and minus. So it's electrical. It's a tremendous pool of electricity that can be utilized in order to, if you can get it from the ionosphere and bring it down to our atmosphere. And that's what they've done. And we'll see that in a moment.
Is this what Tesla wanted to do in terms of tapping into free energy, or is that something different?
No, it's connected, very much connected, yes. But to have dominance over the ionosphere and magnetosphere, that was really not on his wish list so much as to give everyone free energy. And that's, of course, why they eventually killed him and took his research, stole his research, and then sat on it, except for very, I don't know if you know about the esoteric groups of scientists that serve the elite, like the Jasons. The Jasons are...
Oh, yeah, I heard of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they, of course, had access to all of the above in order to develop the technology needed in order to turn the entire atmosphere into an ionizing machine, basically, and that has to do with control over the planet, control over the technology that's coming and going from here, and the real hidden factor was kind of off on its own. The whole idea of transhumanism. You heard Ray Kurzweil, Mr. Google, saying that we needed this technology that would be a singularity event, and the human species would be post-human then, and we would be something absolutely other. So that was separate from all of this going on with the geoengineering. And I want to say a word here, just to put it in your brain, that all the years of schooling that we've had, most of us, in particularly public school, but private school as well, where your subjects are compartmentalized. So you spend 50 minutes in English, you go 50 minutes in mathematics, you go 50 minutes in chemistry, you go 50 minutes. And so you've got in your brain already, your brain has been programmed to think of things as being separate. And so, you're given PhDs only to how separate you have made your knowledge. And that PhD is in that particular subject. And then you have to get another PhD in order to do another subject. That whole thing of compartmentalization it really does not serve us well now at all. Because many of these things that I'm drawing together have been developed separately, except that the people at the top always knew that they would eventually go together. And Clifford is, I have here in front of you, independent scientist Clifford Carnicom. He is a good friend for many years now. I think we met in 2010 when I was living in Santa Fe, and he was as well, he and his wife Carol. So Clifford has really spent a lot of time on the bioengineering that is accompanying the geoengineering. But he started out with geoengineering because he could see that the atmosphere, he had the instrumentation on a shoestring budget, admittedly, he had the instrumentation to be able to measure what was going on with the atmosphere, because he could tell by the trails being left by the jets that was not a contrail, it was chemicals. These were chemical signatures he was seeing. And then he was picking up these fibers that were coming down with these chemicals. And in the fibers, it was a very big challenge for him to break into the fibers to see what was inside. And the fibers looked to be made of polymers, so they were man-made. These were not natural fibers. And when he broke into them, he discovered the bioengineering artifacts that obviously had a purpose, and he began to explore and implement to figure out the purpose. Here's one of the fibers, just to give you an idea. It's sort of translucent. You can sort of see through it, and you can sort of see things in it. And this is found in fields, all over the earth, in the air, on windshields, everywhere, these fibers. But they're small, they're very small, and what's inside them is smaller yet. So this is really the era of the microscope, because we now are in what I call the tiny world. And the tiny world, we have a bias in us that if it's tiny, it's probably not going to hurt us. That couldn't be less true, because these things are, in general, they are not from nature. They are being made in labs, but they're being made mainly in biowarfare labs, which are specially equipped to basically weaponize whatever the scientists working in the labs are doing. We have thousands of these labs in this continental United States. They are all over the world, these labs. We heard about the Wuhan one in 2019, 2020, and yes, the Wuhan one was certainly involved, but there are many, many labs involved in this new synthetic biology approach to a transhumanism that will change the human species.
So can I just double check? I mean, we sidetracked into Carnicom, and I love that guy. I'm sure you're going to go back onto HAARP in a second, but when you say polymers, you can get natural polymers, synthetic polymers. Polymers are simply repeating units of a monomer in long chains. You know, what are these? Are these natural polymers? Are they DNA? Are they cellulose? Are they proteins? Are they plastics? I mean,
I think they're all of the above. Yeah, all of the above is used. But what you're asking is, you have to be familiar with how they're dealing with this in the lab. They're taking, in some cases, they're taking what's natural and making it unnatural. They're using, now I'm blocking the term I need. They're using things to make things weaponized. And like virus is a really good example. A virus, is it natural? Is it unnatural? Well, they say there are both. But the truth is, there is no, if Tom Cowan is right, Dr. Tom Cowan, MD, and I think Andy Kaufman, MD, they've both come out very strong about the fact that when the AMA took over all health in the 19th century in the United States, They stamped out all the natural medicine places, all the homeopathics, everything that people had been doing and learning on their own as human beings of what to do in emergencies and pioneering search situations often. They stamped all that out and created these medical schools that are certainly Freemason run and Freemason controlled, and drew people to another type of medicine that was dependent upon vaccines. And we now, I think that was one of the biggest dramas that was revealed in 2020 to 2025, is that. So we'll just remind me when we get to the synthetic biology to go further into that, because these polymers, the important thing is, to Clifford anyway, what's inside them. And the ones that were man-made, one of the tests would be what was inside those, because what was inside those was definitely man-made. And one of the most famous ones is the one he named, and that's the cross-domain bacteria, the CDB. And those are sort of the ability to self-assemble in the body. You may have heard that term, and that is going like wildfire here in the United States, because many people are now using very good microscopes to look into the blood and other substances, such as dental anesthetic, such as insulin. And it seems that all of them have this ability, these synthetics in them that are able to self-assemble. And I already showed you that paper that I wanted you to see of how they're now making things that are artificial. And it's an artificial life, they're calling it.
I mean, I've seen this, and you know, when I first came across Carnicum,
yeah,
I'd never heard of synthetic biology, and I started looking up in search engines, and I found synthetic biology conferences and meetings, international meetings,
absolutely.
and I was absolutely blown away. Like, this wasn't like conspiratory conferences. This
No.
was mainstream scientific conferences, and people are saying they're going to build a tube and a scaffold and a synthetic pump and a synthetic this and a synthetic cell. And I was like, oh my God, we are literally playing God now. You're
That's
taking
right.
the fundamental, bricks of our cellular biology and coming up with new shit. It's like, what the fuck? Like, this is terrifying. And I've watched sci-fi programs, like Star Trek and whatever, where they go to this advanced civilization and there's nobody there. And then they go, oh, they were experimenting and they released something and everyone died. And you're like, oh my God. Like, is this what we're going to do? Like, we're just making this synthetic shit. And then one day something will just, a genie will come out the bottle and before we know it, we're all extinct. It's like, what the frack?
Well, I think it's already begun, don't you, with the death rate in post-vax?
Something's happening. Anyway, listen,
Yes.
we keep getting sidetracked. I really want to get into the weather modification and the HAARP business.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Let's go.
Okay. Okay, so I'll skip. This is from Clifford. Can I hide that? I wonder if I can. I will. He did this in 2004. That's the main reason I'm putting it up. This is how long ago, because recently in the States and in the UK, they've made some noise about weather modification and geoengineering. And in England, they've actually talked about wanting less sunlight. They're always working on this, but they're keeping it in the public sphere as a matter of weather modification. And here Clifford says something very important in the second paragraph. Let's read that. And he claimed that the aerosol operations represent a mitigating influence on the global warming problem, appears to be a complete facade. in direct contradiction to the fundamental principles of physics and thermodynamics. The lack of candor and honesty by government, media, and environmental protection agencies in response to public inquiry is further evidence of the fictitious fronts that have been proposed. So right there, he says they're lying, and they are. They're lying, and they're still lying, but they're building a different cover story now. I don't know what your cover story in England is right now, but I know what ours is. And ours is basically weather modification, and the latest that they're trying to pass off like a bad penny on the masses is that well, chemtrails. Let's just think of it as more pollution. That's all it is. They really don't want people looking at what's in the chemtrails, other than barium, strontium, and the aluminum, the usuals. They don't want people looking beyond those three. Those three are certainly in the chemtrails.
Well,
but the chemtrails are a cover. They're a carrier of, of a whole thing from big pharma. And when I talk about big pharma, I'm thinking all the way back to World War I and IG Farben. IG Farben was the big honcho chemical company that produced all those wonderful chemicals that basically wiped out an entire generation of European youth by loading airplanes with the chemicals and flying along those trenches that they had dug, and basically asphyxiating all these young men. And that was a chemical war. And then World War II, just a few years later, was an occult war, which I'm sure today I will not have time to talk about. But that's the same guys, the same type of person is running this operation that I'm trying to make public. That's what I want to make clear.
Okay, yeah, I think IG Farben made things like mustard gas and sarin and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, in Appendix 5 of your book, I mean, I was reading it, you listed things like, you know, what's in the chemical spraying operations, and it's everything from arsenic, bacilli, molds, barium. And here in the UK, and I think over the San Francisco Bay, there's documented history that's been released now where our air forces were spraying freaking bacteria on the population and making them sick. I mean, it's just a joke, but yeah, you're right. They've got barium, cadmium, chromium, desiccated human red blood cells, ethylene dibromide, enterobacteria, human white blood cell A, restrictor enzymes, lead, lithium, mercury, methyl aluminium, mold spores, mycoplasma, nano aluminium coated fiberglass, nickel, polymer fibers, Pseudomonas, radioactive cesium, thorium, selenium. I mean, it goes on and on. Like, can I just say something? This is where I struggle with, like, why are they spraying all this shit? Because it seems like such a scattergun approach. You're spraying this stuff literally miles up in the sky. Like, it's going to fall over a large area. You can't target any specific one person. You're going to end up poisoning yourself as well, and your children and your grandchildren. I'm talking about the baddies, the people who rule over us, their soils are getting like destroyed. Their food sources are being contaminated. They're breathing in the same shit. Like, why would they do this? It doesn't. I can't get my head around it. If you were an alien species and this alien species wants to terraform the planet, I would get that. But like, if this is human beings, like, why would they do this to themselves?
Well, yeah, you've opened several cans of worms in that one statement. One is, first of all, I do not assume they are human anymore. Now, of course, we're going to again return to our question of what is human. Well, one thing I know is that nature abhors a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. That's sort of a law of physics. And so you're a medical person, or you're a scientist, and you're working for the Department of Defense, now called in America the Department of War, and you know, you're given a set of instructions to work on a certain project, and as you're working on the project, you can't help but perceive that this is being weaponized against, well, it looks like against human beings. And it doesn't look like it's against the Chinese or the Russians or any well-known so-called enemy. No, this looks like it might be even be tested in the United States, so-called. So you don't know what to do because that's against your principles. But now your principles are getting weaker and weaker and weaker as your salary is mounting, and so you assume that they're just going to test it, and it's controlled. But if you don't have the concept of transhumanism and the desire and the understanding of the historical desire by the elites, I call them the elites, is that to have a species that is, yes, a slave class like the one they have, but this one requires so much lying and so much false press, and there's so many things that you have to do in order to keep people sleeping and in a dreaming state here in the United States. So they want to be able to say the truth, which they're doing more now. I don't know if you've noticed, but yes, they're coming out and telling us what's what here, and yet everyone's sort of in, I guess, shock that it could be as bad as it is. But this is how it is being engineered. Is you've got to one occult principle that goes with the one about the vacuum. And to finish that, if you didn't get my point, and I didn't make it very thorough, if you do things like that, and your morality, which is part of being human, I believe, we are spiritual beings, and we have the job of becoming free will beings who do the good not out of fear of repercussions if we don't, but out of love for the good, the true, and the beautiful. And that is sort of our mandate as human beings, in my opinion. And I've spent 79 years here so far, and that is what I have learned, that this is part of being human. Well, there are people who look human who have already sold their birthright, have already sold it, lock, stock, and barrel, either for a career or a salary, or out of fear of repercussions against their family, or whatever reasoning they have told themselves that they had to do this immoral thing at their job. That's not going to fly with me. And so I'm not sure everybody's human. I tend to think, I live in a town where, I don't know, is my perception off now? Do I need better glasses? I kind of see that a lot of people don't seem very human to me at all here since the jab. And I admit that I have been very affected by reading a book by a guy who's involved in some esoteric stuff in Europe, who has gathered 50 clairvoyant people born with the capability of seeing in ways that I cannot see. And that they have noticed that there are a lot of people post-vax who are contacting their relatives after they're dead. Kind of like, I don't know if you saw the scene in the clip of the Mexican researchers who went through the cemetery with their RMF meter and found all these Bluetooth I don't know what you call them.
Yeah, no, I think I know
all
what
these
you mean.
people were
like
still
Mac numbers or something like that.
They were all going off, and so what's that about? Is this beyond death? I ask myself. Are they, they want to lower the population, the human population. They want to get rid of a whole bunch of people. They certainly have been doing well at that. They being the elites, and that's kind of how it's been going. So when you wonder how these humans can do this to other humans, I don't think those are humans anymore. I don't think a body makes you necessarily human. You now have created a vacuum in your spiritual side, and now what's come in order to utilize the machine that is you, because now you have an operating system in you that was jabbed into you through these shots. And the operating system is connected to Bluetooth, is connected to 5G, 6G, satellites. I mean, what are we looking at here? We're looking at a whole other way.
Okay. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot. So listen, I talk to my friend about this all the time, and we talk about how we're surrounded by people who are like non-player characters. It's like the lights are on, but no one's in. And we don't know whether it's just the heavy programming, it's the societal system where you're working like a dog. You're just, slaving away at the system. And by the time you get home, you're just shattered. There's no mental space for thinking. There's no spirituality. You're just fed this work, consume, gain as much materialistic things as possible. But you struggle with the debt, you struggle with your rent, and there's no capacity to access the higher spiritual self. We question about this all the time because we can see it around us, and you can tell, you just struggle to have a conversation with someone. I always joke, I get on really well with people for about the first 5 minutes, and then it moves to the weather and the vaccines and everything else, and then people think I'm a crazy person. But and there's just no depth to these people. So I agree, I understand all that, but what I'm trying to say is, you're talking about people who have been jabbed and now they're filled with like this maybe demonic presence. I'm talking about I hate this word elite, but these elite people, like, why the frack are they poisoning the earth and sea and water and air that they breathe and live on? Like, we're already a slave system. I mean, it's working really well for them. They've got total control of all of us. Like you said, they have publicly told us through the Epstein disclosure, limited though it is, that they're cannibals, that they do pedophilic rituals, child sacrifice, child trafficking, that they are sick fucks. And you know what? And in any other day and age, there would be revolution, pitchforks, torches, marching on the street and burning the castle down. But, everyone's like, hey, the World Cup is on. Let my team, I hope they win football. And you're just like, you're paying your taxes and you're to these evil bastards, these satanic pedophiles, human eating, sacrificing, freaking cannibals. These are the people who rule over us, and then we're like, I want to vote for my next politician, woohoo. And it's like, what the heck, man?
That is the people that have lost their humanity. Those are the people who have lost their humanity. Those people who will not defend. Those are the ones. I'm not talking about the elites. We all know about the elites. They are raised with tremendous torture. I've known 2 people who were raised in very elite families of European heritage, and they were raped at 3, and it went. They were prepared to be like dolls, and so those are the people I'm talking about to one degree. But here on this side of the masses are completely programmed, and are just going along because that's their programming. That's what masses do. And now it just has different tools, right? It has the movies and has, scandals and all the things that they feed off of in a dramatic sense, but they're not really very human anymore. And that's the key, is how well, and this is how I look at it. Of course I would, right? Because I spend 24/7 on this stuff. I notice how well the transhumanization of the hybrids has gone. It's done great.
Oh shit.
It's done great, and so I'm here, and I'm targeted at times because I guess the whoever has my file wants me to know that uh, they are not pleased with what I'm writing and what I say on broadcasts like this. I keep going because this is my job, and I'm just doing the best I can. I mean, I know I'm not going to be able to convince everyone that this is going on, because you could also make it, like you said, these people are working their buns off. They get home, they're tired, they don't have much left. They certainly don't have a spiritual life. They don't have any inner life. They turn the TV on, and, that's their life. But that is their choice, too. I don't care that we are all under slavery. We have a choice as to how far we're going to let that rule everything we do. We have that choice. We are free. We are developing free will. And that's what I depend on. And I certainly suffer. I certainly suffer for what I've chosen to do. But
Okay.
am I sorry I chose it? No, not at
Yeah.
all.
Right. Next slide. Carry on.
No, this is the one. This is
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Keep going,
Okay,
keep going.
so these are the 7 operations that are going on that we're only told with geoengineering. We're only told about the first one. I tell you, we're only told about the first one. Then the second one is chemical electromagnetic. They're doing all sorts of chemical experiments. You're asking why they have certain chemicals in the chemtrails. Well, they're experimenting. Of course they are. They want to see what happens to us when we breathe it. They want to see what happens to it when it falls in a field of GMOs. Then electromagnetics. There's lots going on with that in our now wireless atmosphere. It's endless experiments going on there. And that would be your Birkeland currents would have to do with those electromagnetic experiments, and the Alvin waves would have to do with that. So then the third is planetary geophysical operations. I would include the geoengineered fires that are going on there, like the ones in California, the one in Maui. All of these are geoengineered. They are ignited from the sky, from the upper atmosphere, probably by laser would be my guess. Another possibility is a LIDAR. It's another instrument. And then what they're igniting is the bazillion pieces of aluminum oxide, the nano-sized aluminum oxide in the soil for at least 6 inches of topsoil everywhere on Earth. So that is very ignitable. And that's how they do it. That's how they're going to do real estate and buy cheap real estate and drive people out and all that. So then the next one is the directed energy warfare operations. That one's complex because they are not just using the big stuff like Star Wars type stuff that we've been all pre-programmed to believe is what goes on from the heavens. No, they've got dual use technology they're making you, the taxpayer, pay for, and then they use that. They can use that against you. They can use it in a military fashion. They can use it in a civilian fashion, and directed energy warfare. I heard a statistic. I have no idea if it's true. The source was pretty good. That there are 1 to 2 million people in the United States who are now being targeted in their own homes with directed energy weapons. Why are they doing that? Well, they're testing them. They're training officers how to use them. They're also very interested in the brain still of what happens to people when they are under the duress of these weapons. So that's going on.
So can I quickly interject? So I've got people emailing me and commenting on my podcast and everything, and they say they're victims of energy directed weapons and they've been suffering, and people have been directing energy through walls at them and this and that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I kind of think, are you guys crazy? Like maybe like because there's a lot of crazy people out there. I'm like these aren't prominent people. These are just ordinary folks. Why would the government be targeting just ordinary people?
Oh, I
But
just
maybe
told you.
yeah,
I
that's what
just
I'm
told
saying.
you.
That's
Yeah.
the reason why I'm mentioning it because of what you just said. I'm like
Yeah.
maybe they are. Maybe they're just testing on guinea pigs. Maybe they just
Yeah.
randomly target because we know through the MK Ultra type experiments, they were just picking people up from the streets, psychiatric hospitals, and then freaking giving them LSD and drugs and freaking brainwashing them and
Yeah.
torturing them and everything. These were just random people. And like, what? And if they were doing that with
Yeah.
chemical drugs,
Yeah.
is it that far fetched that they're just literally picking people and going, right, let's just direct energy weapons at this poor sod and see what happens to them?
Yeah. That's it.
It's kind of terrifying.
Well, yeah, it's terrifying. And I've been squawking about that for 20 years. 20 years. I know lots of people who are and I guess I'm one now. I have to say I'm one that are targeted. So now we have the new thing on the horizon is the Havana syndrome, and the Havana syndrome is something that a guy I admire. He's a doctor, Len Baer, at the Targeted Justice organization. He is fighting like heck to get the sources that be to pay for medical treatment for all these people who are being targeted. Because where can you go when you're targeted with a story as wild and crazy as a directed energy weapon? You can go to the police, but they're in on it. You know, if the feds are running an operation in America, well, you know, the police are going to stand down. Everybody's going to stand down. That's how it is here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you have nowhere to turn, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide from that great song, and that's the truth. That's the truth. I feel more for the directed energy weapons people, victims, than a lot of others. Now, next, it's the same thing. We're in the same area. Surveillance and neural operations. Neural operations just means mind control. They're messing with your brain. They have V2K, voice to skull capability. They can read your thoughts. They can give you thoughts. They can make the thoughts sound like they're yours. They can do voice patterns of, and make it sound like it's your dad who's saying this to you. You know, that sort of
What?
nonsense. Yes, yes, right in your own head. You can hear your father saying, yeah, go ahead and kill him, whatever. This ability to do mind control. Now, think about the people who are running those operations. Now, is this a job? I don't think so. I mean, of course, they're being paid, but I don't think this is about a job. This is about you were a victim, and now you have been trained in how to do this, and you are being sent out there. I think most of the people who do this are victims first and then become perpetrators.
Well, that's like all your pedophiles. That's what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah. Well, and the pedophilia is a little more complex, but at
But you
least
know what I
we,
mean? You know what I mean? Like an abuser becomes a victim, but then the victim ends up
yes,
becoming an abuser again. I mean, not at all. A lot of them will
not
say no.
always. Yeah, not
Some will
always.
say it stops with me. I'm not going to carry on. But there's a
Exactly.
high number of
Yes.
abusers who were abused themselves at some point.
Then there's the problem. As long as you're bringing it up, let's just throw it in there. There's the problem of the CIA drugs that they can give you that make you do pedophile crimes, and they film you, and now they can blackmail you the rest of your life. That's what I think is really going on, certainly with the American Senate, the U.S. Senate. I think that blackmail of a pedophile coercion into pedophilia. The guy's not a real pedophile, but under that drug, he's completely willing. So okay, there's all that. That this is all, and HAARP is used for all this. HAARP is used for this stuff with frequencies. Do you understand? Frequencies being triangulated from cell towers and satellites coming from just one satellite above that has, is tethered to some sort of person down here that they have to have watch 24/7. It's a huge business. Huge business. Everything in America is for sale, as you know, and everyone, almost. Then the next one, biological transhumanism operations. That's my baby. I mean, I refer to the other stuff, but the biological transhumanism is the one that I've spent most time on in order to understand how they're going to eventually, possibly, completely eliminate Homo sapiens. Completely eliminate. That's what I call post-human. But they can also just control a Homo sapiens and slowly take over their cells and body. Like my blood now is under severe targeting. My blood looks like crap. It's got all sorts of synthetics in it. Am I getting all of that from the geoengineering? Or am I getting part of that from being personally targeted because of what I write? I really don't know the answer to that, but I know that my blood looks like crap. So,
I said in my Substack, are we entering the dawn of something new like Homo technicus or Homo syntheticus or Homo machina? I haven't decided which one it is.
Yep. I'm sure they're going to rename it something like that. Exactly. But that's what's happening. That is what's happening. Then finally, the last one, I don't spend any time on, but I would like to, but I can't. I'm too busy. Detection and obscuration of exotic propulsion systems. Of course, there are exotic, there are UFOs or whatever the other term is, UAFs. But it's not from aliens. It's from here. We've had those sorts of things for a long, long time, so that HAARP is involved in that as well. So that's now let's really get to the nitty gritty of the system that you've been anxious for me to get to. Here we are. Here it is. HAARP.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to that first half of the podcast. But folks, sadly, this is where the free version ends. If you want to hear the second half, and honestly, it's usually the best part, by then the guest is kind of relaxed, the conversation is flowing more deeply, and we start to really explore solutions, the hopeful side of things. That's when the real human moments come out. Well, you'll need to become a supporter. I'm completely independent. No corporate sponsors, no advertisers other than myself, no funding from Big Pharma, the government, the CIA, the MI5, or anyone else. This podcast exists because of people like you. So if you value these conversations and want to hear the rest of this amazing episode, please consider supporting the show via my paid Substack or Spotify supporter channel. And if becoming a supporter isn't possible right now, that's absolutely okay. There are still other ways you can really help. Leave a review, follow the podcast, share the episode, and recommend it to friends, family, and colleagues. That alone will genuinely make a huge difference. You can also buy stuff from my shop. So if you visit my website, drmalik.com, there's an affiliate section, and there's great products that my family and I use, and you get a discount, and I get a little commission. Folks, thank you so much for listening. God bless.
I, Ahmed Malik, am a private civilian protected by the Geneva Convention. My Substack, social media posts and podcasts are my personal experiences, observations and opinions. This information is for educational purposes only. Although I am a doctor, I am not your doctor, and I am not providing medical or legal advice to you or to the wider public. I am not licensed or registered with the GMC or any other licensing board. The responsibility for the interpretation, due diligence and use of the information from my Substack and my podcast lies with you, the viewer and or listener. Please do your research and use your discernment. It is not my intention to harass, intimidate, offend, defame, conspire, blackmail, coerce, or cause anxiety, alarm, or distress to any man or woman, and the information presented here is done so with peaceful and honourable intentions. Enjoy, folks.